On this week's episode, I'm excited to have Julian Hayes II on as a guest. Julian is an author, an executive health consultant, and the founder of The Art of Fitness and Life. His mission is to help entrepreneurs, executives, and high net worth individuals elevate their status and upgrade their energy and entire human system so they can run around with their great-great-grandchildren. This mission is accomplished through leveraging their unique D.N.A, data-driven health metrics, high-tech toys, and a performance team. He's also the host of the Optimal Health for Busy Entrepreneurs podcast. Lastly, he's written over 300 articles with the majority published at the world's largest publications such as Inc., Entrepreneur, Success, and many more. Introducing author, executive health consultant, and the founder of The Art of Fitness and Life, Julian Hayes II. Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today, we have Julian Hayes II. He's an executive health consultant and founder at The Art of Fitness and Life. Julian, welcome to the show.
How's it going, man? Thank you so much for having me on. I'm, looking forward to it.
Awesome. No, really good to have you on. And, let's hear more about your business. What do you do?
Yeah, so it looks like a multitude of things, but if you just wanted to put a nice bow around it, a big picture thing, and then we'll get practical. The big picture is I want people to be able to run around with their great-great-grandchildren and not just see them. So that sounds outlandish. On a practical level, I run a concierge wellness firm that's pretty bespoke. And probably what makes it a little unique is that it's very data-driven and there's a performance team. So it's not just one person. And it's truly a customized nutrition, exercise, and every facet of health is optimized for that person based on a lot of different testing and assessments that we do initially.
Awesome. Okay. Well, let's talk about this nutrition part. It's a very debated topic right now with a lot of different fields of thought. So I want to hear your opinion on nutrition. What should certain age groups be eating? Or let's actually just talk about nutrition in whole. What is your opinion on that?
Yeah. So this is a non-sexy, non-popular answer. This is not going to be a soundbite, but I'm not in any nutritional camp. I think all types of different ways of nutrition can work. However, if you look at the core, the fundamentals of any type of quote unquote diet out there, they're all the same to a certain standpoint. Whereas minimal processed foods, eat whole foods, can you kill it? Can you grow it? Those are the basic parameters of it, right? You start to get into the weeds when you start debating how much carbs, how much fat, how much protein. That's all specific on the individual, their goals, their genetics, and that's where a lot of the data and assessments comes from. But from a very fundamental standpoint, no processed foods, very little processed foods. We're all human, right? And a little alcohol. Once again, we're humans. We're not robots. I even enjoy alcohol myself from time to time, but there's a difference between enjoying it as a social thing and using it as a crux to drown away the stress of running a business or starting a business. Two totally different things. But I will say, as a fundamental principle, I do emphasize protein, a good amount of protein with each meal, just to keep people satiated and to also help with their metabolic rate. So that is one thing, is the protein. And then also most 99% of the people are not carnivores that I talk to. So it's a lot of vegetables as well. So you can say it's a plant-based. Everyone's plant-based, in my opinion. Everyone should be plant-based. That doesn't mean you're vegan or vegetarian. It just means that the predominant portion of your plate is going to be vegetables, but you can still have a big steak there if you want it. But just make sure to have your vegetables as well, because that's helping, that's providing fiber, that's helping your gut and your microbiome. And once again, that's helping keep you satiated.
Got it. So you're basically saying you don't fall into any camp when it comes to nutrition, but you're saying you gotta eat don't eat processed foods, limit alcohol, have a lot of protein intake, and your vegetables.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How much protein do you think is necessary for an adult?
If you look at the RDA, the RDA recommendations is super low.
So sorry, what does RDA stand for?
Oh, it's the Recommended Dietary Association. I forgot the actual stand for, but it's basically the national governmental recommendations for food intake. A lot of registered dietitians will go by this as well. But a lot of times the difference there is they're including everyone, the masses. They're not including people that are highly active, that are working out, that are concerned with building muscle mass, that are running marathons and so forth and so forth. So there's a huge difference. So typically, I would look at probably give or take maybe 0.8 pounds to 1 gram per pound. So if I'm 200, I'm almost 200 pounds. So typically I eat between 200 grams of protein to 180 grams. Now, here's another caveat. If somebody's like, wow, what if I'm 225 and I want to lose a lot of weight? Then you would set your goal at your goal weight. So say you're 225, but you have a lot of body fat to lose. So maybe it's 185, 190. So set your goal, eat like you're 190 right now. The difference is me, I don't have as much body fat to lose. The other person in the example here who does maybe have a little more body fat to lose, then you would set that to your goal weight and then base those numbers off of there. And I overshoot a little bit because human nature, we're going to overeat. Sometimes we're going to stress eat. And I'd rather someone stress eat on a little extra protein than a little extra carbohydrates. Not that carbohydrates are bad. It's just that the protein's a little more metabolically sound nutrient.
Got it. So you're saying eat with your goal weight in mind rather than what you currently weigh, especially when you're trying to lose weight and when it comes to protein.
Yeah, and a lot of times calorie counting. See, I calorie counting is very exciting for me. I love to look at numbers, look at progress, look at data because it makes me feel like I'm growing, and that's one of my basic needs. Excuse me, every day is to feel like I'm growing. And so, but some people keeping up with numbers is a total headache, and I can totally get it. So for those people, I usually just go by portions, and that's just the easy way. And if you're making sound nutritional decisions, it's bound to happen that you're going to get your goal weight. I'm not going to say it's impossible for it not to happen, but it is kind of impossible for it not to happen. I've never seen it not happen. And so what I mean by that is say you have a meal, say meal one, we're going to have some kind of protein. We're going to have a unlimited amount of vegetables that you want, broccoli, any of those in there. Just pick whatever you want. And then you're going to go by portions. Do you want a more higher fat diet or do you want a higher carb diet? And that determines, and that will fix up the rest of the composition of the meal right there. But we start with the protein, we start with the vegetables, and then the fat and the carbs, depending on what diet you're doing, that's how you'll make the rest of your plate.
Got it. Okay. Do you? I guess is there a replacement for eating vegetables? Like you use it for micronutrients. If you were to just eat gummy vitamins instead, how much does that impact your health compared to actually eating the vegetables?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Well, the gummy vitamins, some of those typically have some kind of extra sugars and stuff. So if I was going to do that, I would look into some of the dry powders as an alternative. I have what you would say is like a red powder and a green powder. I have that as well. That's more like nutritional insurance. It's a good insurance policy, but it's not going to replace the real thing per se. Now, and the reason why is because the fiber content and the different effects that it can have on your microbiome only can come from that food source. Now, I look at as I said, it's an insurance policy and an assistance because most of us eat the same foods day in and day out. And depending on where we live in the world, we're not going to get access to just a wide variety of vegetables and fruits. In an ideal world, we will eat the rainbow, as they told us since we were little kids. Eat the rainbow, but we got to be realistic here. Depending on where you live, it's harder to eat the rainbow. And sometimes, going back to where you live, the rainbow, some of those colors look terrible because they're not in the right season that you should be eating them. And so that's where those powders come in to help offset not getting the whole rainbow there, but you're still getting a wide variety set. But you can't replace real food.
Got it. So let's talk about the right season. Are you talking about just like it's not strawberry season, so you shouldn't be eating these green strawberries, or am I completely misunderstanding it?
Yeah, that's it to a certain standpoint. I guess strawberries are easier. I'm thinking more along the lines of some of the more rare types of fruits, maybe like apricots or something. I don't typically see those in the Nashville area just year round. And I'm kind of with my fruit intake, I don't really like that many fruits. I typically only eat berries, bananas, and maybe a little strawberries and raspberries. But I'm not really a huge fruit guy.
Thank you so much for answering those questions. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about entrepreneurship and the fitness and nutrition side of being an entrepreneur. What should startups or what should founders be eating on a daily basis to make sure they get the right nutrition so they can focus on their business without feeling any type of crash?
That can go a bunch of different directions right there. The first thing is a nutrient dense diet, right? Something that is going to provide you an ample amount of the micronutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, that's going to supply that energy. So, as we kind of mentioned earlier, the protein does a good job of that. because it's not just protein you're getting a lot of different vitamins within that protein. Same thing with the carbohydrates. You're getting a lot of different micronutrients within those that also is going to provide the raw materials to give you that energy. And looking beyond nutrition, I mean, after you have your typical diet set up, that's where you can start then to think about supplementation and bringing on things to help fill in those gaps. And did but I would also look into for entrepreneurs, I would look into recovery and sleep, and because I think that's a big predicator on their energy levels and their decision making, not even just in business, but decision making within their nutrition as well.
Great. So let's dive deeper into the recovery and sleep part. Tell me what is it and what's a good amount of sleep that entrepreneurs should be getting, or anyone for that matter.
Yeah, well, it's maybe unsatisfactory, but there's no blanketed answer on what's the perfect amount of sleep. I know probably growing up we heard it's 8 hours, right? But 8 hours, we focus too much on quantity and not quality. Someone can sleep 8 hours and I can sleep six and a half, and I get 3.5 hours to 4 hours of deep sleep and REM sleep in combination, and they get only maybe 2 hours, and my quality of sleep is much higher, much more efficient as well compared to their sleep. Their sleep was pretty much junk food sleep, whereas mine's like a 5-star gourmet meal of sleep. So we have to, when we think about sleep, I don't want you to, yes, I want you to think about the quantity, getting the necessary amount of hours, but I want you to also focus on the quality of that sleep as well, and not just getting so tied down to I got to get my 8 to 9 hours. And I think that's where one thing is technology can help. We have all these different devices that we wear on our wrist now and even on our fingers, and we can look at how we're sleeping and we can collect that data, and that's going to give us insights into how we're sleeping and if we need to make some different changes within our pre-sleep routine and at the beginning of our day.
Got it. So what are some ways that we could use to improve our quality of sleep?
I like to start with an easy one. And the easy one is to stop eating a few hours before bed. That's an easy one to do. And the reason why is because the act of eating and the act of digestion requires energy. So your body's breaking that down. And if you go to sleep or attempt to go to sleep right after eating, or even just 30 minutes, your body is still in the act of digestion, but your body's also trying to sleep. So you're taking it away and it's putting all its energy on digestion instead of sleep. So that's going to affect the quality of your sleep. Other things after that is caffeine intake. Some people, such as myself, I need to stop probably around this time, which is why I got a cup here, and this is my last one of the day, is that the caffeine intake and having a cutoff with the caffeine, at least 6 to 8 hours. And then after that, look into light. So for me, I have blue blocking glasses, and there's also a free software called Flux that I have on my computer. And what that does is, as the sun goes down, the color on your screen is going to go down as well, so it's not going to be as bright. And the reason why you want that is because bright blue light suppresses melatonin and it stimulates cortisol. Neither of that is inherently bad, but we want those things to kind of operate when it's more ideal. So you want the cortisol to be spiking more as you're waking up in the morning and going about your day. And you want the melatonin to be secreting at night because it's helping to promote relaxation. So one thing is to, you used to tell people, completely avoid blue screens and bright lights. It's impossible pretty much unless you're just going to light candles at night, keep all the lights off. You just got candles and you live out in the woods somewhere. Everywhere is blue light. And there's TV, and that sometimes that's how you unwind with family and friends. So for me, I like to say, okay, let's accept the environment as it is, but how can we still mitigate it? And that's where having some sort of blue blocking glasses and also this Flux comes into handy there. Those are just a few tips. And then also going to sleep at the same time, reasonably at the same time. Now, I know once again, 10 o'clock can be your cutoff. Say 10 o'clock is your time. Things happen, work happens, maybe you go out. But for all intents and purposes, try to stay close, relatively close to that sleep time and that wake time, because you're putting your body in a rhythm and it's getting used to it. The body's a very smart machine and you can train it to nearly do anything you want it to do.
So going off that point, is there something called catch up sleep where you're sleep deprived all throughout the week and then on the weekend you catch up? Does that benefit you? Is that just a myth?
I think that's more of a myth. Yeah, that's more of a myth. I think that's the term sleep debt. Now, can you? I don't know. I don't really use the word sleep debt because technically impossible to mathematically catch up and say I broke even on my sleep debt. Now I paid off all my debt, because we had years of just probably 2 a.m. nights and 4 a.m. nights, and you can't catch that up just number wise. But the reason why I don't like that is because there's something called social jet lag. We heard of jet lag when you travel and everything, and that throws you off. Social jet lag is, piggybacking on the point that I talked about earlier, going to sleep at the same time and waking up at the same time. What a lot of people do is their weekend schedule will be completely different compared to their weekday schedule. And when they try to, maybe they have somewhere to be on Monday, their body has been trained for the weekend. So they're trying to go to sleep Sunday night to wake up early Monday, even though they haven't been doing it the last few days. And that's not going to happen. And therefore, they wake up tired Monday. And then that's kind of where you hear the sleep debt is starting to come to effect. And they're feeling a little more drowsy and groggy. And they're falling behind throughout the week. So I wouldn't, people catch up on the weekend, do it if you need to. But I wouldn't use that as a crux because it's still throwing you off your rhythm. And you're still leaving a lot of performance gains throughout the week by taking that approach.
Got it. Let's talk about naps now throughout the day. I mean, as an entrepreneur, you're working, 12 to 16 hours a day. If you're able to squeeze in a nap, is that beneficial, or is that also kind of like a myth and doesn't really help you?
No, naps are great if you actually have the time to do it. I don't know who has the time to do it. I don't think we're taking siestas here, but I mean, I'm jealous. I'm jealous of people to do that. I would love to take a nap. It would help my athletic performances a lot. But and so naps are good. If you're going to take a nap, 90 minutes is pretty good time frame because you get to go through a full cycle of sleep. I wouldn't go any longer typically, but 90 minutes is pretty good. But even if you cannot do 90 minutes, what I do is I take random 5 to 10 minute breaks, and it's like a halftime for me. I just take a deep breath, stop everything I'm doing, and I just kind of assess, am I on track for today? Am I following the plan that was laid out? And how do I feel about the day? And it's just a way to check in with myself. A lot of times as entrepreneurs, we can go, go, go all the time. And we never take time for ourselves and our own well being, our own mental health, our own emotional health, and to see what's going on in our world and how we feel. And I think this taking that 5 to 10 minute meditation break, vision break, whatever you want to call it, is something that could be just as beneficial as an app for most of us.
Got it. So going off that, why do you think entrepreneurs sometimes struggle with their health? They're so ambitious about building their business, but they compromise their health.
Yeah, I mean that's part of the reason is because when I think about it's funny that I guess it's not funny in the moment, but it's funny if I think about it. You have some of the most capable entrepreneurs, and they struggle to lose weight, and it's kind of a paradox because in business, for the most part, the more you do, the more you're probably going to get back. The more resources you pour into something, the more capital you pour into something, the more you're probably going to get back. The thing with health and weight loss, more and more and more and more, and just keep doing that rarely works because in health and fitness and weight loss, it's like a pendulum. It's you push a lot, that's some stress, but you also need that time to recover, to let your body rebuild and then come back at it again so you're stronger. Whereas an entrepreneur, you're going to have to venture, you can just keep your foot on the gas pedal the entire time. The more resources I get, the more and more and more and more I get, the quicker it's going to happen. And it doesn't work like that in health. Like you have people that will do CrossFit every day and extreme dieting, and they might feel okay for a week or two, but their reserves are going down the toilet afterwards. Their blood work is going to look terrible months later, and that's the hard part. There's a balance, a delicate balance when it comes to health and fitness, and you can get like that because I'm kind of like that now, where you do more and more and more. But it's just as much as I run and lift and box, I also put ample amount of time into my nutrition, into my stretching, into just my relaxation, the direct opposite of those things. So that's one reason right there.
Got it. So you're basically saying working out every day is not good for you, or just
No, it's good. It can be good for you. It depends what you're doing. Are you recovering well from those workouts? Are you taking the amount of time for your nutrition and your recovery as much as you are your workouts? A lot of times people will put all their focus on just the workouts, and they would be very, entrepreneurs are competitive. A lot of them are type A. So usually to tell them to work hard, that's not the issue. I've never had to tell anyone you need to work harder. You just need to work harder. I've never had to tell someone to get off the couch. It's never the problem. It's usually misaligned strategies or needing a little, maybe the ship is, maybe we need to steer this ship in a different direction. You know, let's focus on some of these other little intangibles that we typically overlook. But it's never about getting somebody to work harder. They're already working harder, they're already working out. It's just that the recovery is a big aspect. And recovery is not just sleep. Recovery is, like we mentioned earlier, it's our mindset, it's our mental state as well. This is very stressful at times, being an entrepreneur and having, I can imagine I'm at the stage right now where you got 100 people, even probably like 20 people. You got people depending on you to perform. They got families too, so that's even more than those 20 people. That can be maybe 60 people. They got families of 3 or so, and that can be a burden on you. And that's where I mention it all the time, is the success paradox, where for entrepreneurs, the more you gain success, the more you build your company up. Yes, you get more revenue and everything, but you also have more responsibility now. You're also more in demand now. That can also bring more stress. And unfortunately, then what gets put on the back burner is your personal well-being. So it's not like you're on purpose being negligent. It's just that there's so many other things pulling you. And a lot of entrepreneurs are also very service-oriented, benevolent people. People first. So they're going to put everybody else before them, when really they really need to take care of themselves first and foremost. So then they can be even more effective to everyone around them. A better leader, a better parent, a better partner, and everything.
Got it. Let's back up a little bit. You mentioned something about steering the ship in the right direction, like getting them off the couch isn't the issue. But what are some issues you see with the intangible side, like you mentioned?
Yeah, structure. I would say structure is one of them. I like to think of it like, okay, so let's think of, we have a recipe and we have ingredients. And eating healthy, working out, sleeping, and you say meditation and different other biohacks. Those are all just ingredients, right? But a recipe, when you have a recipe, it's something that's in order, it's something that makes sense, it's cohesion. And a lot of times, entrepreneurs do not have that. They don't have the recipe. They have the ingredients, different things to use, but they don't have the recipe of how to put it together. So that's a big thing there, is just the whole strategy aspect. And in today's age, you see a lot of people doing things that are popular or what's on trend, catching on to the next wave. So that can also be a issue as well. And if you want to go a little more esoteric, one of the first things that I recommend people do is to really learn themselves, to know how you operate and to be okay with that. I'm an all or nothing guy. So I can go cold turkey if I need to on anything. I can just flip a switch. One day, if I want to, I can eat a bunch of cake, and the next day I won't have any remorse. I'm back on it, my normal regimen. Some people need a little more of a process to slowly wean themselves off of it. So to really know your psychology, know how you operate, I think that's one of the most beneficial things you can do as an entrepreneur, not even just with your business, but with your health as well. Because if you're someone who enjoys going out to dinners and eating carbohydrates and enjoying that kind of experience with people, why would you do a keto diet or carnivore diet where you have to eliminate those things and to create unnecessary friction with yourself? Because the secret is, in health and fitness, really, it shouldn't be a secret, but I guess it is a secret, is that we all want the destination of getting healthier, right? Living a very long time. There's a multitude of ways to get there. Just like if we're getting on a highway, if I'm in New York and I'm trying to get to Los Angeles, there's a bunch of different ways I can get there. I can get there by plane, by train, by car. I can walk, I can run. Might take a long time. I can still do it. And that's kind of how I look at it with the world of health and nutrition. Is that all these ways take us to the same destination if we just follow the recipe and don't veer off and start adding things to that recipe that doesn't go with that particular recipe. It's up to us to know which one makes sense for us and to get that clarity.
Got it. So you're saying that there's different types of recipes for different types of people. Would you be
Exactly.
able to walk us through a type of recipe of a startup entrepreneur?
Yeah. In what regard?
As in, they are in the idea phase, they are looking to basically launch a product, but they're working, it's them and their partner, they're working 16 hours a day.
Yeah. So I wouldn't even worry about what business they're in. I think that doesn't even matter. The thing I would look at is, you know, say I didn't have their genetics or blood work to go off of, right? That's kind of like a cheat code for me, right? When you have all that, decisions are very easy then. Say I didn't have any of that. The first thing I'm looking at is, okay, what are you doing first thing in the morning, when you wake up? So let's ensure that you start off the day on the right foot. So let's hammer home an ideal breakfast for you. Intermittent fasting is good for a lot of people, but for a lot of startup entrepreneurs and high charging people, I don't think fasting's a good idea, because fasting is a stressor already, and you have the stressor of your business already that you're going through. So why add an extra stressor and deprive yourself of calories and nutrients that you need throughout the day? So for most of them, I don't do the fast till 1 or 2 o'clock thing. We can still fast from maybe 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. or 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. 12 hours of fast. That's what I do. Is I just fast for about 12 hours. Now, I'll give myself as an example, and maybe what this startup entrepreneur could do. I have the same breakfast pretty much every morning. It is oatmeal, and it is a smoothie that has a lot of stuff in it. So it has protein powder in it, has some greens, some leafy greens in there. It has some chia seeds, and it has different powders depending on the day. So it could be maca powder, it could be matcha powder, ashwagandha, and blueberries and pineapples, right? So that's about 1,000 calories, because I have about 2 or 3 servings of oatmeal. Now, I need a lot of calories. I work out 2 times a day, and I run, a running box and stuff. So I burn about almost 1,000 calories a day. And so if you're not doing that, just reduce the portion size, right? But the point being is, I wake up every morning. I do not have to start draining my decision meter. And what I mean by that is, say we have a battery, we're iPhone battery. Every time we make decisions, that green battery goes down. And if we make too many small decisions, when it comes time to make the big decisions, we're in the red already. And the quality is not going to be as high. So I'm thinking, how can I reduce my decision making throughout the day so I have the most juice and power ready for the decisions that really matter? And so have a breakfast that you don't even have to think about every morning. That's going to give you ample amount of calories and nutrients to get you going through the day. That's the first thing I would do. The second thing, let's just look at this from a nutritional perspective. I think that'll be easier. Most people are good at breakfast, so we got the breakfast. Most people might be pretty good at dinner. The middle of the day is where it gets a little hazy, because we're in the flow of work. We don't want to stop. We got calls nonstop. So what can we do then? And this is where a meal delivery service comes into hand. I always recommend to look into that. I'm a little lazy. And if people are like me, they're pretty lazy, and sometimes you don't want to cook. So, and going by convenience is not necessarily a good thing, because the world is built for convenience, but the world is also built to keep you average. No offense, but it is. Everything. The vegetables is pre-cut already. You don't even have to cut vegetables anymore. You can DoorDash all your food and everything. You don't really have to leave your house ever if you don't want to. But I'm getting on a tangent here. Um, Back to the nutrition thing. So have your lunch catered out. Okay, so the startup guy, he has a great breakfast. He's had a good set of calls for 4 or 5 hours. It's lunchtime. What are we going to do? I don't want him to think about that too much. So what's our plan already? He has his meal delivery service. So he has 5 days worth of it. So every day he can take that with him if he goes to work at a co-working space, or if he just works from his house, wherever. He has that lunch meal with him. So he eats that a little bit. While he's eating, he's taking a time out as well to get into his inner world, to check in with himself. Then he's ready to go back at it again throughout the day. When you work out and go work out or run or whatever, everyone's different. I don't really care when people do it. The only preference is, I don't think you should do it right before you go to bed or even close, because it's probably going to amp you up. Other than that, you can work out at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., or you can work at 12 p.m. Don't care. What I do care about is that we have some kind of strategy and structure to the day, and that we're not just playing things by chance and randomness.
That's great. So have a structure throughout your day. Don't play by chance or randomness, so that way you could focus your energy on the bigger decisions rather than all the small decisions which drain your battery.
Yeah, if you notice, you look at all presidents, they pretty much wear the same suits. You look at even people like Steve Jobs, he had an outfit. Zuckerberg had an outfit for the most part. A lot of business people, a lot of people out there in that space, they pretty much wear the same thing every day. I don't like wearing the same thing every day. I have a uniform, right? So I have like a row of shirts lined up, and I have like a row of blazers and stuff, and pants and stuff, and I just plug and match. But I have a idea of a uniform that I go up on my day by day with as well, just from those guys. I just couldn't wear a black turtleneck every day. It's just not my thing. But you get the point there, is that you try to systemize things as much as you can. And I took this idea from Bill Walsh. He's a Hall of Fame coach. He was a Hall of Fame coach for the 49ers back in the 70s. The 49ers were terrible before he came there, and they ended up winning Super Bowls. And he established something that you call the standard of performance. And so he wasn't necessarily worried about the results of the game or even just winning the games. It was more he was focused on the process of how you did everything. How do you go about practice? The players had their shirts tucked in. The QBs held the ball a certain way. Their foot placement was a certain way. There was no cursing in the locker room. So he established a culture and a way of doing things. And I think about the same way with nutrition. How do you eat? And they were like, what do you mean? I just eat, I put food in my mouth. No, how do you eat? What's your philosophy on nutrition? What's your strategy on nutrition? So I want people to critically think a little more. When you think about it a little more, it may make you think a little more initially, but over time it's going to be like clockwork. And you're not going to have to, and you won't get swayed by all these trends or anything because you'll have a philosophy that works for you and a way of doing things that works specifically for you. Because we want to make business and health and relationships, we want all those things to seamlessly mesh. We don't want to cause friction. We don't want you to be, man, my fitness is going well, but my business sucks because it's too much work on my fitness, or my business is going well, but my health is going well. We want all those things to synergistically be together.
Got it. So going off that, speaking of business competitive advantages, what are some, or okay, going off that, how can exercise, nutrition, and sleep become your competitive advantage for your business?
Yeah, well, you're literally going to be smarter when you're sleeping. When you're if you think about it, when we're sleeping at night, the material that we're learning, it has to consolidate and mesh somehow, and that's where that consolidation period happens in our REM sleep. And think of REM sleep as, say we have a blender and we're blending it up, and then you learn something new today. That's pretty much the same thing as you're taking another piece of fruit and throwing it in that blender, and then you're going to blend that up, and it's going to get pureed with everything else. That's kind of how it is at night as well. The new information we learn throughout the day is getting blended up. And the next day we come out and go about our day, that new information is blended in with our initial knowledge bank. And then we think about deep sleep. That's our physical recovery. So a lot of our physical recovery, a lot of our hormone regulations is going on during that stage of sleep. And another practical example is to think about when you're sleep deprived. Let's use two areas of the brain. We have our prefrontal cortex and we have our amygdala. When you hear prefrontal cortex, think of logic and reasoning. When you hear your amygdala, it's very primitive. It's one of the oldest parts of the brain. It's more of our emotion, and when you're sleep deprived, and there's a bunch of brain images on this, activity in your amygdala increases and heightens when you're sleep deprived, and activity with your prefrontal cortex, it lessens. So you're getting someone who is going to act more on emotions and feelings instead of logic and reasoning. And that's not really a good recipe in business. You can make a lot of bad decisions. You can make a lot of bad decisions if you're just investing based on how you feel and your emotions. It's not a good idea. And I even think for relationships, you're going to be that fuse, that tolerance is going to be shorter as well because you're going to lash out more in emotion. So, and there's charisma. Charisma is a big part of being an effective leader, and that's affected as well by our sleep quality. And with exercise, one of the competitive advantages is what you would call executive presence. And it's a good book. I forgot who wrote it a long time ago. It's basically like your gravitas, like your confidence, and just your overall presentation. So it's not about having the six pack. Those things are cool if you want it, but it's not even about that. It's really about feeling confident with your overall image, because image comes power, with image comes energy, especially when that image is, you're in the right image, from your clothes to your posture and everything. That's the unspoken communication, because a lot of communication is unspoken. I think only like 7% is spoken communication. So just by our posture, just by the way we present ourselves, we are conveying a message already, whether we realize it or not.
Got it. So you're basically saying that sleep helps solidify, or sleep helps develop your prefrontal cortex to help you make more better logical decisions without using too many emotional decisions.
I mean, you can look at one area like that, but yeah, with sleep is pretty much has its strings. If sleep is a puppet master, it pretty much has its strings on every single facet of our life, from economically, socially, organizationally, relational, physically, emotionally. Every single aspect of life can be tied to sleep.
Got it. So let's move on to the aging aspect of it. So, what is the first principle of healthy aging?
Yeah, the first principle, maybe we'll go to like two, because the first one's a little more esoteric, and I think it's changing your mindset around aging. Aging has a bad reputation. If you go up to someone and say, I don't know, I'm going to live 150 plus years, or, I'm looking forward to aging, they're like, what, are you crazy? Why would you going to do that? Because when we think of aging, you think of somebody that's weaker, You think of someone that's you're colder all the time. You think of someone who's not as mentally sharp. You think of someone who's putting on extra pounds. And so you're thinking of someone that's a lesser version of themselves than what they currently are right now. And so the first start is to change that paradigm and to question why do I think this way? Who told me that aging had to be this way? Who told me that I had to get slower, fatter, weaker, and dumber when I get older? Who said that? It's just things that we've been told. And we were told that because the people that told us that were told that. But no one ever stopped to think about, is that even true? Who says that? Because I've seen people who don't fit those bills. So if you see one person that can do it, then why can't I do it? So that's one thing, is to change that paradigm in our head of what aging actually is. To me, aging is wisdom. I'm better now at 35 than I am at 25, and I have data to keep up with it as well. So so I'm not just saying it. I know it, and I have a peer, what I call a mentor. He's like a doc. He's about 65 or so. He's a doctor, and his VO2 max is like that of a 33-year-old. It's amazing. And we have age testing as well, where you can measure how old you are, how old your immune system is biologically compared to chronologically. So I might be 35 chronologically, but biologically I can be 27, 26 right now. And there's so many different health advances as well that's coming. So really challenging our aging paradigm is the first thing. And just to make something a little more universal to everyone, one of the things I've been researching a little more lately, and I'm fascinated by, is loneliness. And I'm more of a lone wolf type of person. And loneliness, the feeling of loneliness, is actually highly inflammatory. And if you look at centenarians, people who live over 100 years old, some of the key things they attribute to living 100 years old, and the people that study them, the books that have been written on them, is that feeling of a social community, is having a purpose and mission, a rhyme and reasoning for waking up. You hear people say, I can't wait to retire. I'm like, no, you don't want to say that, because how many times have we seen people that say, quote unquote, I can't wait to retire, and then a few years later they passed away, or their health is just declined? It's because their life force, they have nothing to live for anymore. There's no reasoning. I mean, look at presidents. Presidents live a very long time, and they have a very high stressful life. So why is that? It's usually because those presidents, even after they leave office, they have another endeavor that they're going after, some type of nonprofit charity work, or something like that, that keeps them getting out of bed every morning. And so those are very easy things. Before thinking about things nutrition wise and exercise wise, I would look into the mindset and get those things right, because what we are inside ultimately becomes what we become externally.
Got it. So you're basically saying the why for what you do matters so much and actually has tangible life expectancy outputs.
Yeah, knowing why you're doing something, like why are we on this call? Why are we doing this? Why are we podcast? Why do we put ourselves to the stress of creating a business from nothing, literally from nothing, and then build it up? Why do we do that? And keeping with that, that thing can propel you in some really tough moments.
So backing up a little bit, you were talking about aging. In your opinion, how old do you think a human body can get to? And do you think do you think that, or yeah, let's start with that. How old do you think the human body can get to?
Well, I hope it's at least 215 years old, because that's the goal I have, is 215, because I need to live 3 centuries. So in my head, it's 215. I have no idea. But in all seriousness, I think the oldest person has lived, was it 122? 121? I think the oldest person. And I think that's it. I think it's that. Now, I do think that at least 100. I think the majority of people can get to 100. And when I say 100, I want you to have your health span. Lifespan's important, but also well span. So I don't want you just to be 100 and be dependent on people to help, or be a shell of yourself. I want you to be 100 and still be fairly vibrant and able to contribute to society and feel like you're productive yourself. So, you got to have the whole piece. I don't want to be 215 and I can't do anything. That's no fun. So I want all three there when we mention that. So it's not just staying alive as long as possible and still not feeling like you're contributing anything. Because I take a lot of pleasure and value just from, hopefully, with the work I do and just trying to pour into people. So that's a big part. And I couldn't imagine if that was taken away from me. What am I going to do? So I want those always to still be intact. But I think for the masses, I think 100, 100's good. 100's good. We'll slowly wean them, because tell someone 150, like, Oh man, like their head explodes. But yeah, I'm like 215.
That kind of blows my mind. I've never heard anyone say 215. I've heard people say, yeah, 150, but 215. That's impressive.
Yeah, yeah. Look, if you don't set the goal, you have no chance of accomplishing it, right? And the worst that can happen is I don't accomplish it, but I still had fun on the ride there. So that's the way I look at it. No one has ever gotten in trouble for setting a goal, and so that's the way I look at it. Even in like business, is what do you have to lose for just setting these huge moonshot goals? And you have nothing to lose, and you have everything to gain. I think Earl Nightingale said that part, but anyway, you get that part.
Let's shift gears a little bit and talk more about the mental health side of it. We've talked a lot about the physical health, but let's go back to the loneliness part and other aspects of mental health. What are your opinions on that?
For me with mental health, one of the key things I had to learn how to do, and sometimes I still fall into that trap, is equating my worth with my business and the results that it's producing. And what I mean by that is a lot of times, say you're at the very beginning stages of your business, and you're going to have some days or even periods or even maybe a year or two where revenue's low or you're not really bringing in a lot. And if you don't separate that identity, then you're gonna have a lot of days where you just feel terrible. You feel, for me, feel like a loser, or you just feel like I shouldn't be doing this. What am I doing? I'm in over my head. I'm not capable of doing this. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I had to really learn. I went to therapy. Therapy helped me out big time with this, and so I had to learn to separate Julian the person from Julian the business owner, and see that those are two separate things. Because a lot of things that was going on in business, I couldn't control them anyway, whether they happen or not. And so I was putting my worth on something that I couldn't control fully. So I was always at the whims of clients, customers, and just the world at large. That was going to determine my worth. And that's a very shaky proposition to be in when you got random strangers holding your self worth. So I had to really reframe that. And I think a lot of business owners go through that, as well as not letting their work define who they are and their self worth. It can be a big part of how you get pleasure out of everything, but it can't be just the worth that makes you as a person.
Right. So, what's a great way to separate? Like a lot of people, they introduce themselves by their career,
Yeah.
and rather than who they are as a person. And this is how society is, at least here in the U.S.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's fine. I would, it would be weird if somebody was like, hey, who are you? I'd be like, yeah, I'm an athlete. I like to run a lot. I like to read and dance a lot. They'd be like, oh, okay. So I get that part. But, one, I think therapy helps. I think therapy helps big time. It was weird at first, but therapy was beneficial for me. Two is to not live on an island. As a lot of entrepreneurs, and I have this habit, especially if you're a little more introverted, when you start to have problems or you start to feel stressed out, for me, I will go in my cocoon and I'll go in my own little world, right? Whereas I think it's good to have some type of community or some type of support network, whether it's a mentor, a coach, or just a group, somebody to talk to, right? And I had to struggle because I'm not the traditional entrepreneur. So a lot of my close friends are not entrepreneurs. They don't want to be, they're comfortable with going to a job and then letting it go, which is great to know, to have that self-awareness. Self-awareness is awesome. So at first I was trying to talk to them about, some of the things I was going through, and it was a disconnect. They just don't understand it. And so I had to find people like me that understood. And it's even better if you find people who are ahead of you, years ahead of you, because what you're going to see is that a lot of your struggles, a lot of your stressors and things that you're worried about, they might even laugh at you. They're not laughing at you, they're laughing at the situation because they were like that too at this stage of your journey. And so you're going to get that comfort to know that, oh, okay, what I'm going through is not that unique. A lot of other people went through it as well. It's just growing pains. It's okay. And so just to have almost like that pressure valve to release is, it's money can't, you can't put a price on it.
Yeah. So it's about building your community and have mentors to basically help you through the journey as well.
Yeah, yeah, not being on an island. Yeah, you do not want to be on an island because, man, I wrote about it a long time ago, but I forgot the stats. But entrepreneurs, it's, oh man, I forgot the stats, but it's basically it's stats around bipolar, just suicidal ideations and just a lot of other nasty illnesses out there concerning the mind and emotions out there, and then fractured relationships and stuff. Entrepreneurs struggle a little bit with relationships at times as well, and so that's just knowing how to navigate that and being prepared will do wonders.
Yeah. So a lot of people, at least in in the self development community, they say there's things you can't control, and focus on what you can control. Backing up to the health side of it, are genes something? Just let's say a bad genes. Is that something you just accept, or is there something you can do to increase your health life?
No, so we are this is getting to a little bit of epigenetics. And when you hear the word epigenetics, epi means above, and so genetics is genetics. So epi is above the genome, the gene there. So your DNA doesn't change throughout our lifetime. So the set of genes I have, the set of genes that you have, you're always going to have those. And we have heard in the past that you are your genes. You've heard people say, wait, you know, we're big bone, it runs in our family. Wait, we're all heavy people in our family, it just runs in our family. And you hear these things. And I like to think of it as your genes offer you clues to your past but the epigenetics is really the potential to mold your future. And the reason why is because think of this as you have hardware and you have software. The hardware is your genes. The software is the epigenetics. The type of software that you put into that hardware is going to influence how it's going to operate in general. And this is the same thing here. So in this instance here, the hardware is the human system, our human body, and the epigenetics is that software. And the inputs is from the environment. The environment meaning the foods we eat, the exercising that we do, the way we breathe, the thoughts we think, the people we interact with, our jobs, our mission that we talked about earlier, even pollutants in the environment, every single thing we're dynamically interacting with. And that is communicating with our body on a cellular level. Some genes are turning off, some genes are turning on, some genes are repressing, some genes are not repressing. And so you're essentially molding your future. So I have genes that give me a very high propensity for insulin problems, and that can lead to diabetes and other blood sugar problems. Doesn't mean it's a guarantee to happen. It just means I have a higher propensity if I should not have a healthy lifestyle. And so for other people, maybe they have a higher propensity for cognitive issues. But seeing the genes you have and knowing this blueprint, this is where you get precise with the type of nutritional recommendations, the type of supplemental recommendations, the type of exercising that you do. You have something to optimize the set of genes that you have. And this is where you hear the term N of one. And this is why I use N of one, because you take a genetic test, you do different lab testing to see how it correlates and connects with each other, and then you make their nutritional and supplemental recommendations to be much more precise with how you go about it.
Got it. Okay, that's really interesting. I don't have a background in any of this, I'm sure, and so I'm learning a lot from this. So thank you so much. Switching gears a little bit, I ask most of our guests these questions. What is a piece of advice that you'd give to someone who's just starting the entrepreneurial journey from the health fitness side?
Oh, the health fitness side, interesting. I was going to just give you a general one, but the general one is to do it for the intention, not the attention. So be highly intentional with everything you do, and do not worry about the attention that you'll get. Meaning that a lot of times we see people they give away some of their identity in hopes of getting likes, in hopes of getting praise or validation from people, whether it's social media or whether it's outside of social media. And so I want you to be very intentional. Be very intentional with why you're doing business, even if it's not the most popular thing, even if it takes a little longer to grow because of the way you're doing things. It's something that you believe in. So stick with the intention with that. And I think with health today, I'm thinking intentionality is a very important thing with that as well, and consistency. And the reason why is before we come onto this talk here, I was at the gym this morning, and I see a lot of people who over the year, and they're there every time, like I am. They're not really changing, and that's I say this with love, and I think it's because a lot of times there's no intentionality behind why they're exercising. They're just going through the motions. Maybe they're a little consistent, but somebody says showing up's a part of it. No, like showing up is like that's what you're supposed to do. You don't get credit for showing up. I've never liked that. Like showing up is part of the battle. It's like no, showing up is just like a prerequisite to even get in the game. So it's the intensity and the intention that you're going about things. That's a big thing as well. And so that's just what was on my mind when it comes to health and fitness is to be intentional and be intense with it, just like you would with your business.
I love that. Spoken like a true athlete right there.
Yeah.
Intentionality, intentionality, not, or go with an intention, not attention. That's really great. What is your favorite business book and why?
I guess it's not a business book. I got another business book, but this one, Napoleon's Hill Outwitting the Devil, was very good. I love that book. But I guess a more businessy book is Patrick Lencioni's. I think it's called Getting Naked, and that's a very good business book. And the reason why I like that book so much is because it's talking about working with clients and sometimes working and not wanting to look dumb in front of your clients, not wanting to be wrong in front of your clients, or even admitting that you don't know something in front of your clients, or working with clients who are much older than you and maybe much more wealthier than you are and everything. And you can feel like an imposter, like, should I be working with these people? I'm a little young to be working with these people, kind of everything. So you have all these different thoughts going in your head. So that book was very important for me because, I came across a lot of people who were a lot more seasoned than me and everything. But I had to eventually realize that I have a lot of value with my specific domain here. They're not coming to me with marriage advice or financial advice or anything. They're coming to me for health advice. And so I do know this area, right? And so that book was very important in terms of working with clients and working with a higher caliber client.
Julian, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Where can our audience get in touch with you?
Yeah, the home base is theartoffitnessandlife.com. And while you're listening to this amazing podcast and leaving a review, go ahead and subscribe over to the my podcast, Optimal Health for Busy Entrepreneurs.
I love it. Great. I'll put all this in the show notes. Julian, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, man. I really enjoyed this.